But I think the main things is at the end of the day, volleyball is volleyball. It's in the same 9x9 court, and the rules are the same. So we. Is that on the back of your shirt?
Yeah, it's on the back of the
Beauty,
shirt.
beauty. A little free shout out for you. And it doesn't matter who's on the other side of the net. You need to still execute to the best of your ability if you want a chance to win.
You know what, Rob? Thank God that VNL is just in a few weeks, and we have another opportunity to potentially get rid of that clip at the beginning of the show.
Never gonna happen.
What's up? What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It is episode 120. It is May 6th. My name is Everett Delorme. That is Rob St. Clair. This is the 9x9, the 81 square meters of the best volleyball content on the internet. And this one, all in all, is probably going to be a bit of a shorter show and a bit of a lighter show as we're wrapping up the club volleyball, the professional volleyball season. Women's VNL starts literally next week, right? We are on the precipice of a massive international national team season with VNL and the Olympics. But first and foremost, we need to wrap up the professional club season with the big granddaddy of them all. And in a few senses, of course, we've got the Champions League finals that went down just yesterday. Rob, you did a fantastic all-in-all live stream and watch along. And then we got the NCAA Championship to talk about. But first and foremost, we see their Italian domination. I mean, 3 of the 4 teams were Italian, but Trentino wraps up the season with a positive note, and Conegliano wraps up another one of the most dominant seasons all time in women's volleyball. Let's start chronologically. Let's start first and foremost with Trentino. Now, Rob, I was in favor of JW. JW looked dominated all year long. Trentino hasn't looked good since the playoffs started, but they had everyone back. They were healthy, and they dominated. It was a donging of dongings.
It was
in
indeed.
This one. And Trentino finally wins a trophy. And I mean, how long has it been? Obviously, since last year's Scudetto, but man, it seems like it's been a long time, both in the Champions League and this season in general for Trentino.
Yeah, first Champions League title for Trentino in 13 years. They grab a trophy this season in their 4th and final attempt. We can get to the fact that the reigning champion, now being Trentino, will not be playing Champions League next year, which is absurd. But I think you and I both were talking on last week's show about these two teams, Trentino and JW, going into this Champions League final. We're coming in from very different places, having very different experiences during the season with very different levels of expectation. I think just of a different sense of either pressure or opportunity, depending on how you want to think about it. And it was Trentino who I think felt to me like Trentino saw that match yesterday as an opportunity, and they pounced on that opportunity. They really were the better team from serve number 1 until point 25 in the 3rd set. This was a donging. This was a clinic. This is a very impressive performance by a Trentino team who looked as complete as they have in well over a month. Like you said, they had Spiritually back. They had Lavia back. Alessandro Micheletto put on a clinic, as he so often does. We can get to Everett's truly blasphemous take about.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready to walk back on it. Of course.
Well, of
like
course.
There's no way. There's no way that around it otherwise, right? Like it was. I did do.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
You did call me out during your watch along as well.
Did.
I don't know if you saw. I answered on the chat. By the way.
Did. I saw you in there. I saw a friendly Volleyball Source V logo in the chat. But just from a Trentino perspective, this was. I really think they didn't feel pressure. They saw it as an opportunity, and they took advantage of that opportunity. I'm very happy for this team. I think this team deserved more than they got this year. I think that the Scudetto playoffs would have gone completely differently if Riccardo Spiritelli had been a bigger part of it. I think that the Coppa Italia Super Cup, whatever. Those are very, very insignificant compared to what Trentino just accomplished. And this is one of, like we talk about, one of the great franchises in volleyball, top to bottom, an organization that does it really the right way. They've built this team with a pretty good amount of continuity over the years. They've put together a team with the Champions League title in mind, and they have accomplished their goal. And I can't help but feel happy for them. I think the better team and the more deserving team won this Champions League.
Absolutely. Like there's no controversy about who was the better team in this one, right? Like Trentino showed up with a game plan and balled out. If this was the Trentino that we had seen in the playoffs, we would have had a massively entertaining Scudetto final. Not to say
For
that
sure.
it wasn't already, but like if that Trentino team as defending champs and having dominated all year long, preparing for the Champions League final against a Perugia team that for the first time in a long time would have seemed like underdogs, really. Ooh-wee! As much as I loved that Monza run, I may have loved it more than anyone else. But man, that the potential of that final would have been fantastic. Trentino just balled out in this one.
Yeah,
They dominated. Micheletto was the best player in the world in this one. But ultimately, like even if you look at the supporting cast, like when you go to head, Koza Murnik and Podraskinen were all over Huber and Glider, right?
Yep.
And that's where JW has really dominated down the middle all year long. And it's appearances like this for Huber that I'm still questionable. Like it almost feels a little bit like a Joel Embiid situation where you can, or like maybe a bit of like an Austin Matthews situation for my fellow Canadians who understand that reference. We're like, hey, we're going to dominate during the regular season when the pressure isn't there, but maybe not show up so much when it is the big time. And I mean, like it's hard to say that because they did win the PlusLiga, so it is whatever. Sportus in the chat saying that JW has lost 5 straight 1-game finals. So whenever they're in a 1-game final situation like the Champions League or a Cup final, they're 0-5, right? Which is maybe something maybe something to look at. But ultimately, when you go down that line, I thought Lavia, even though his numbers aren't fantastic right now, 23-39% efficiency, I thought that he was so effective like in serving and when he was getting points, they were coming at crucial points. Rich Licky was far and away better than Petri all day.
Way better.
That mismatch and the opposites, how Rich Licky was playing, how he was hitting balls that were out of system, high off the hands, and Petri struggled the entire time. I mean, they had to bring in Sclater at one point. I mean, I love Sclater several times. Exactly. So it was just utter domination by Trentino. Lorenzano was fantastic. Spertoli was making fantastic digs. That was part of the reason why Petri had that low efficiency. Yeah. So but even then, like he was getting like, unfortunately, they didn't upload any of the volumetric stats, so I don't know digs or anything like that from this one. But all in all, like you can go down that lineup. And Trentino played better than JW with this one. Like
you're absolutely right. Player for player. Every position group on Trentino's side was better than the corresponding position group on JSW's side. And I think that a lot of the credit for that should start with Riccardo Spertoli. I think that he was head and shoulders better than Benjamin Toniutti yesterday. And I was looking at some of the numbers because the serving and serve reception numbers were very similar. They were shockingly similar. And normally when you see a team dong another team in this convincing of a fashion, 3-0, and like you never felt like Trentino was going to let go of control of that game, you would think that domination would come in serve and pass. That is not what happened. 3 aces, 7 errors for Trentino, real clean. 4 aces, 8 errors for JW, pretty clean as well. Reception stats almost identical. Actually, the tiniest margin better for JW, but the 2 big numbers to me: 13 blocks for Trentino to JW's 7.
Massive.
376 efficiency for Trentino as a team to JW's 242. That is setters. That is Spertoli winning the setter battle against Benjamin Toniutti. That is what did it for me. And sure, the JW attackers not named Tomasz Fornal didn't carry enough of their weight. That is for sure. Fornal played pretty well. He just didn't get any help. But Spertoli set a brilliant game, and Alessandro Micheletto, 13 for 24 with 1 error, world-class reception numbers, 50% efficiency, a block and 2 aces, is the best player on planet Earth, Everett Delorme. And there is no question. There was no question last week. There has not been a question the entire season. This is the unicorn's world, and we're all just living in it.
I mean, hey. He did go, like, they did manage to lose, like, how many games of their last pass?
With a backup setter.
Yeah. I mean, no, they had Spertoli for Samuel Milano.
With no Lavia, and who cares about
whatever.
third place series? Third place series.
I'm about to walk back don't interrupt me as I'm about to like try to take my foot out of my mouth, okay? But the way he did it, there was so many shots coming from behind him where like high ball from like 6. And remember, he's a lefty on the left side, so that's way more difficult. And he's able to watch that come and go high hands. There was a pipe that he hit to go up 18-17 in the third, or it was the second. It was to go up where he went thumb down to 1. And that's such a hard shot to make as a lefty, and he made it effortlessly. Like, the calm and composure that he had really like perpetuates through the entire roster, and Micheletti just put on a clinic. Like, there's no doubt in my mind right now that, you know, other than like the past couple weeks, he's the best player in the country right now, or not in the country, sorry, in the world, in the world right now. So yeah, like it was impressive all around from Trentino. They clearly seemed more prepared as well too. Like Podraskinin and Kozamurnik, 5 blocks each, 10 in total. The middles the middles out blocked JW in itself. That to me is, of course, they're both fantastic middles. Podraskinin maybe an all-time top one. Kozamurnik still has a long time to go, but he's put up some numbers. But like, that is preparation. That to me is knowing what's going to happen. Just even more so alluding to the setter battle that you had talked about before. And I mean, Tony Uti has been fantastic for a long time, but Spertoli was far and away the better setter. And even I thought Lorenzano was fantastic too. He made a few amazing digs throughout this one. So,
and
all in all, it was
as the primary target, which was interesting to me.
Yeah, that to me is, especially with how much pressure you can put on Trentino by going to their passers. Like, neither Micheletti nor Lavia are fantastic. They're both pretty good, but they're not fantastic. Like, it's, you know, like I would find a way, and unfortunately, like, it's hard without being getting that baseline view of just to see how spread out their service eve is. Like, maybe this is a situation where, like, once again, this is how prepared they are. They know almost exactly where AW is going to be targeting, and Lorenzano's jumping in front of the hitters. But, you know, especially when you look at how few errors JW was making, it's clear that like they had red lights and green lights, right? And we've talked about this before about certain players having the go for. When you look at the error numbers, only Glider and Fornow are missing. So everyone else is putting in maybe like a 60, 70, 68% shot, like not necessarily going for it, which may be the reason why Lorenzano's passing numbers seem a little bit more inflated. But that's all just guessing at this point.
Yeah, well, this was a clinic. This was a very impressive, dominant performance. It was clear from the onset who the best team was, and now I think we got to talk about some of just sort of the larger consequences of this match. First of all, how absurd is it that Trentino, after winning the Champions League, will not play in it again next year? The one thing that soccer does well in this case is they give that golden ticket. They give that, and I didn't know this because I don't care about soccer. It's the worst sport in the world. But the one thing that soccer is good at, their soccer's format is excellent across the board. And I think they've done the right thing. And if you win the Champions League, that is a golden ticket to the following year's Champions League. That is an absolute no-brainer.
No-brainer.
It is a no-brainer. CEV.
Yeah,
figure it out.
That just seems like it should be smart. And you know what? All you do is that whichever, like, if they have already qualified for their country's direct qualification, then that country gets an extra spot.
I totally agree.
Pretty simple, right?
Totally agree.
But once again, Boomers, trench coats, just not happening, right? There's yeah. I mean, like, it just goes into volleyball, right? This is just classic volleyball. The most obvious like stuff. We don't have to deal with the problems of other sports. We have to deal with stupid problems, right? Like we
meltdown of a broadcast in the 4th set of a Champions League SuperFinal.
But even better that it only happened on the YouTube stream, right? It only happened on the official CEV YouTube stream because illegal streams were still working, which meant that the broadcast was still working. Which, all in all, like if you're the CEV, you're going to prioritize the broadcast over the stream. But still, the fact that you had to pay money for that and it just went down, and there was nothing from the CEV to be like, like, it's coming back. You guys were just sitting ducks. Hilarious.
So yeah, boomers, trench coats, terrible formatting. Trentino is not going to play Champions League next year. That is absurd. The other thing, as we take a look at now, two teams, both from Italy, that won Champions Leagues. Everett, you and I earlier this season put our flag in the ground and staked a claim that the PlusLiga is the best men's club league in the world.
Yes, we did.
Does this result, does Trentino beating JSW, but not just beating them, does Trentino dominating JSW in the final of the Champions League, does that change anything in your head about where the SuperLega stands in comparison to the PlusLiga?
Maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit. Maybe it's not as clear cut as I thought up until this point. I just think that for me, a lot of that statement just comes down to how the PlusLiga operates. And
that I completely agree with.
And how it works on that end. There's a lot of issues that I have with the SuperLega in terms of it's archaic in so many ways, from the 720 broadcast to so many different
scheduling
things.
And media, and yeah,
right.
That's exactly the point that I was going to make too. Is that like the PlusLiga as an organization does so many things better, and I think
better. Way better,
and infinitely better. And they have tremendous Polish domestic talent, top to bottom, 1 through 16 in the league. But at the end of the day, Italy still has the ability, with the money in that league, to field teams that I just think right now that the PlusLiga can't quite field yet. I still think that the elite top level peaks of great team volleyball are higher in Italy than they are in Poland by a slim margin. But Italy But Italy, I think, for the foreseeable future, until Poland gets a lot more financial juice into that league.
But at the same time, it's hard to make that argument when, like, this is Italy's first championship in 3 years, when Poland has won 3 in a row.
Yes,
right? That to me is to me, it's almost too bad that JW didn't win this one, because it would have been the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, the discussion would have been over.
The discussion would have been over. But I think that when you look at it, like, pull it back a little bit, Monza beat Trentino, and I mean, this is going to be a cheesy, like, whatever, but like, Monza beat Trentino, who lost to Zavierci? No. Who lost
Milano
to
lost to Zavierci. Monza lost to Warszawa in the Challenge Cup final.
Warszawa, yes, right?
And so Warszawa got crushed by JW. No, sorry. Warszawa got crushed by Zavierci in the PlusLiga semifinals. And Zavierci, I think, lost to Resovia in the CEV Cup. Yeah. And then, it all goes back and forth.
Yeah. But Zavierci, Resovia also beat Milano too, right? So it would have been
beat Milano,
right? Like, of the 3 European trophies, the PlusLiga won 2.
Yes, they did.
Right, and they just didn't win the big ones. So I think that it's maybe a little bit murkier, but there's still a very large conversation that I still don't like. To me, I don't know if you can say that there's a best league in the world, and it's going to be very interesting to see how things continue to go out. But like, Trentino is a club that, even though they haven't won a Champions League in 13 years, like, let's go back into those 13 years and see what they've done. Right? Yeah. This isn't a team that kind of comes in and comes out. This is a team that competes year in and year out. So yeah, like, they knew how to win, but also too, like, Trentino had something to prove in this one. I think if this was a multi-game series, like, if this goes to a second game, even on a neutral court, like, we probably get a golden set out of it. I think JW like punches back, but Trentino was ready to like JW was feeling themselves a little bit, and I mean, sometimes that can be dangerous, especially towards the end of the year. And Trentino was ready to like, they've been a caged lion for together. Like, finally they were healthy and ready to go.
Yep, well said. Just to last but not least, a couple comments on JW. Great season, great season. They were number one in their domestic league, which I do think we can say for sure is the deepest domestic league in all of volleyball. I don't really think that's debatable. And they were the number one seed. They won the league again. They have dominated in that format. They've won 3 out of the last 4. Tremendous year. Good representation of what Polish volleyball is all about. Not good enough in the final, not even close. But hopefully these guys go into the summer feeling pretty good about their accomplishments. I honestly don't have that much more to say because of how cleanly they got destroyed yesterday.
Yeah, it wasn't much of a game to break down. Like Trentino served pretty well. They blocked fantastic, and they sided out great. Like that's basically the way it was. Whenever JW had a bit of a lead in the third, it looked like it was potentially going to go to a fourth, and Trentino immediately pushed back. So good on them. Love that they won. Glad that they won at least one trophy this year.
Yes, that's true. They're the season that they had deserved at least one trophy, and they got a big one. They got a very big one. All right, moving on. Another trophy that is coming back home to Italy is once again going to Imoco Conegliano. They complete, like Everett said, one of the greatest volleyball seasons of all time.
I stole that from you, in all fairness.
So, but it is a fact, and we can discuss it compared to some of the other their other seasons, really, because they kind of set the bar in that category. Conegliano wins the Champions League again. It is their second in the last 4 years. They haven't had quite the dominant success in that competition as they've had within Italian borders, but this match got a lot more interesting. Conegliano completely destroyed Malonza in sets 1 and 3. Malonza, to their credit, came back and responded in sets 2 and 4, but Conegliano stepped on their throats in the 5th. For whatever reason, Everett, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, because I was doing a watch along yesterday. I was scrambling, running a broadcast, doing a bunch of things. I wasn't like locked into every single point of the match, but even though this went 5, it never felt to me like Conegliano was going to lose.
No, it was very much like in control. Like they were playing as Conegliano, and there was a drop off, and there was playing as Conegliano, and there was a drop off. Like they were very much. It was. I mean, there was a drop off in terms of like Agonu being able to score, but that is about it. And Nika Dalderop too. Not Dalderop. Like Silla. Silla was great. But it just felt like they were always playing catch up. Like even in the sets that Malonza won, that there was always a chance that Conegliano was going to come back. Whereas the sets that Conegliano won were Conegliano sets, like through and through. It was just an utter domination. Like it was one of the most dominant 5-setters I've seen. I've seen in a long time. And I mean, even in that 5th set, like we were tied 6-6, and then you blink and it was 10-6. Right. And that was just that Conegliano moment of being like, hey, let's stop playing with our food and let's kill them already. Like that's kind of like I almost wonder, and obviously they wouldn't, but just the way that was going, it did make me think, like, is Santarelli doing this on purpose just to make it interesting? Like, is he that invested in this game that he's just kind of like, let's just give them a little bit of, give them a little space. It's like almost like Max Verstappen was like, I'm just going to slow down a little bit just because I'm bored and I want to be interested. Like that's almost kind of what it felt like. Obviously, they're not doing that, but just in their ability to kind of like go out of it a little bit and then bring it right back almost instantaneously when it needed to.
Yeah, it's remarkable their ability to do that, and that is something that is so hard to teach or learn or manufacture. It's just greatness when you have again another amazing franchise, top to bottom, an amazing franchise with the greatest coach in all of volleyball, with players, 3 of them in particular that I want to give credit to: Monica De Gennaro, Joanna Volos, and most of all Robin de Cruyff, because she retires today from her volleyball career, going out on top of the world as a Champions League champion. Those 3 players have been with Conegliano for 8 years. They have been with Coach Daniele Santarelli since the beginning, since he first took the job in the 2017 to 18 season. Those 3 players being with him that entire time is like unheard of across all of volleyball, and the success that they have had in that time period is ridiculous. I brought up some of the numbers yesterday during the watch along, but they're crazy. And then this year it was crazy. They lost 2 matches the entire season.
Yeah.
They lost 1 match to Novara in the Lega Volley Femminile semifinal. They lost 1 match to Scandici in match 1 of the final. They were untouchable in Champions League. They won all 4 trophies all 4 tournaments that they participated in. They doubled their number of trophies compared to number of matches lost on the year. It is insane just to take a step back and look at what this program accomplishes year in and year out. And again, I'm happy for them because the celebration, just like when they won the league last week, it is cool. It's still great, still a great selling. It's just like still clear to me that team understands the magnitude of their achievement given what they've sacrificed to get to that level. And I think that, and we've talked about it before on the show, Everett, but greatness like that needs to be appreciated, needs to be celebrated. And that's what we're doing for both of these teams.
100%. I think in terms of appreciating greatness in this one, Rob, obviously the big thing in women's volleyball, we've talked about it so much, is that opposite matchup. And when you come terms to Agono versus Hawk, that is essentially like as good as you can get, right? Especially at the club level. How many years past have we seen those two match up? Like, has there been a Champions League final without the two of them post-COVID?
Without at least one of them, no, there hasn't. So in 21, Hawk.
I guess last year would have been the 1 year.
Yeah,
where
last year was Egonu beating Boskovic. But yeah, Egonu's played in 5 in a row now.
Because Vargas
has last 4.
Yeah, but I think all of that to say, I think that there's one player who stepped up more so, and arguably, like, she was my MVP of the game, and that was Catherine Plummer.
100%.
Now, those of you who have watched this show for a long time might be a little surprising for that, because definitely in the past two years that we've done towards this part of the year, this is where I get critical of Catherine Plummer. This is where she starts to break down. This is where she's delegated to the bench. But not only in the Scudetto Minelli final, but in this one, she was my MVP. She was a plus 14, had 13 break points. Isabel Hawk had 6 break points.
It's incredible.
They relied on Catherine Plummer to get them through this game. Offensively, she was pretty good too. 19 for 40 before. She had 2 blocks and no aces. She had 21 points. Hawk had 23. Right. When you talk about that domination earlier, just on the other side, Agonu had 19. Scylla had 13. Right. So the numbers don't even compare. And each of the next ones, Kezot had 10. And Kelsey Robinson Cook also had 10 for Conegliano. But Catherine Plummer being dominant and stepping up in these past 2 games has been massive. In the past 2 weeks, she has been so good, and she has been solid all year long, right? Like, if she had played this way last year, Alexa Gray would have never had that fantastic game because she never would have come in, right? Like, that's the reality of it. So I think so much good has to be, like, so much praise has to be given to Catherine Plummer for her performance specifically in this match, but also throughout the entire year. And American fans have to be licking their lips, because if you, like, she might bring an actual offensive presence and option to that American lineup. And if you can have her and Jordan Thompson, I know we're getting a little ahead of ourselves with national team talk here, but if you can get her and Jordan Thompson on the same page and start opening up that American offense, I don't know, things might not look as bad as they did last year for Team USA. But all in all, to say, Catherine Plummer was a stud.
She was great. Yeah, I think it's really nice for me, the American fan, to know what I sure as hell hope Karch Karai knows, and that's that his 2 starting outside hitters in the Paris Olympics are Kelsey Robinson and Catherine Plummer. They literally have to be. There is no other option. Jordan Larson hasn't played volleyball. She is a legend, but she is past her prime. She is there to provide leadership. Whoever else beneath that, Ali Franti, Kara Bajima, it doesn't matter. Whoever is beneath that, there's no way that they can provide the stability, the complementary volleyball, and the chemistry that Kelsey Robinson Cook and Catherine Plummer have now developed playing next to each other the entire season. They were the best outside hitter duo in all of women's volleyball this year. I don't think it's debatable. And they're going to carry that over right into the national team gym. And I'm so, so excited for that. That answers a huge question for American fans. But you're right. I thought Plummer was great. I thought Kelsey Robinson played her role phenomenally well. There were a couple rotations too. I think even in the fifth set where there were two tricky rotations where Kelsey Robinson was basically the only arm on the floor because they took Plummer off for Bardaro in the back row, and they even took Isabel Hawk off for Maddie Bug for one rotation serving, which I was surprised by. And in that rotation alone, it fell to Kelsey Robinson to score and get them out of there, and she did. So when a point is needed, she is a player that you can rely upon, even if it's not on the same level of volume. Some of the numbers overall: serving real similar, reception real similar, blocking real similar. Listen to this team attack efficiency: 257 for Conegliano as a team, only 168 for Malonza as a team.
Ooh, yes,
that is rough. And like you said earlier, Everett, this is by far the worst we have ever seen Paola Egonu play in a Champions League SuperFinal. Her numbers in 5 sets: 19 points, 16 for 59 attacking with 12 errors. That's 0.68 efficiency. That's 6%. 2 blocks and 1 ace. And Malonza, once they got to that fifth set, their strategy couldn't have been more clear. They were either going to win that match or lose that match based on how Paola Egonu played. They were giving her all the balls, and she was not good enough. That was.
You want to talk about the fifth set stats, Rob?
Let's do
Paola Egonu, 2 for 18 while getting blocked. Or 2 for 11 while getting blocked. On the other side of the net, Catherine Plummer, 5 for 6 with a block.
Incredible.
Isabel Hawk had no points in the fifth set for Conegliano. Catherine Plummer had 6.
That's it. That's it right there.
That's it right there. That's it right there. So, yeah, it was a fantastic cap off to what was an amazing season for Conegliano. There's no other way to say it. Like they
100%.
dominated all year, and it didn't stop.
That's right. So let's ask a couple of sort of big picture questions, or just like be the the volleyball media people here for a second. Everett, what were your takes on the overall in arena production and the broadcast production and the coverage and everything about like the SuperFinals, the event? What were your thoughts on the event in Antalya, Turkey, and the way that event was presented around the volleyball world?
Honestly, pretty good, other than the fact that the stream going down, like it wasn't that bad. It looked like it was a pretty full house for both matches.
Yeah.
In Antalya, the vibes seemed good. It seemed like it seemed like a vibe, but the production was a little bit better than normal. I mean, I really didn't feel like paying. Sorry, Louis, I love you, but I didn't really feel like paying the money to be able to be an all-star legendary member for the CEV, because I've already paid other things before, and I just don't understand why I keep paying money and still can't watch games and whatever. I was frustrated, so I found other means to watch it, which is funny because had I spent money on YouTube, I would have missed a bunch of the games. So instead, by watching it illegally, I was able to watch the game. So maybe we should figure that out, CEV. But I absolutely love the fact that you guys did that watch along. Like I was able to sync it up. I was able to sync it up with my stream, so that I was watching you a little bit delayed, but you were talking about what I was watching at that time. And I thought it was overall, I really enjoyed your guys' stream. I thought the men's match was like a little bit sleepy. Having Rock Mozic as a guest was he was still good, but he wasn't as good as Antropova and Britt Hervods.
Yeah, those two were awesome. I was blown away, like we said before the show, Everett. Antropova's English speaking blew me away.
So good. So good.
And really like engaging and thoughtful and like insightful and transparent. Like she wasn't like putting on any like neutral.
No, none of that awkward juice. Yeah. I have noticed that a lot from the women's stars, that they're just a little bit more natural, and when it opens. Maybe that does Antropova have a relationship with Key? Because I know that obviously Herbots has a great relationship with Key, so it was. At some points, like Rob had to be quiet, which is, I mean, we all know how that tough that tough that is, because like he and Herbots were just bouncing off each other so well, and it was so natural to listen to. And at one point, you brought out Pepper, Herbots,
the
Herbotz's mom came in to say hi for a little bit. I had such a blast watching you guys yesterday. It was a lot of fun. So I think that needs to happen. And there was a point.
Yeah, I hope so too.
It needs to happen some more.
Yeah, I hope so too.
If CEV isn't willing to do it, I think we should do more watch-alongs and invite Key because she's awesome.
Yeah, she's great. I've figured out a lot of things about how to optimize the tech setup for that too.
Nice.
So maybe we can do some of that more. Yeah, the how to pull people's video chat in was a series of experiments, but yeah, we figured it out. Yeah, shout out to all three of the guests: Rock Mozic, Katarina Antropova, Britt Herbots. All awesome. It was cool to have them on, and yeah, they really were. They were like opinionated and transparent and knowledgeable and like willing to share what they knew, especially those two Scandici girls, because they had both just played against both Malonza and Conegliano. So they knew a lot about the matchups against those two teams and against some of those players. So yeah, that was really cool. And yeah, as far as I could tell, the crowd in Antalya was pretty good.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit worried about that given that there were no Turkish teams playing, but I thought that part of it was pretty good. And Louis is great. Louis does a great job always.
Oh, Louis does such a great job. I was really happy to be able to go back and watch at least some of the highlights that he brings. It's just I was even thinking like I don't know who I like more between you and Louis. You just bring different types of energy, both appropriate, both good. But when the British accent is nice, when the British accent knows what they're talking about.
Right.
And is engaged and stuff like that. So I'm glad I was able to. Louis needs to be doing more of this shit.
Yeah, Louis is the man. I there's a unique type of energy that only Louis can bring that I absolutely love. I always love
exactly. It's just different, right?
Yeah, like it's great. That's what it's all about.
So yeah, it was overall like I think it was pretty well done. I think that Turkey in general is becoming more and more like one of the leaders in terms of hosting events and being able to get people out there. Like I was also worried too that the fact that we might not be able to see that many people, and like they showed up. So really hats off to just Turkey as a country for picking up volleyball and doing well on both sides. Love to see it. Well,
fortunately for us, we get a lot more volleyball from, I assume, that same venue in Antalya because they host Nations League a week from tomorrow for the women.
Talking about like this is good organizational decisions.
Yes,
people.
Thank you.
Right, this is how we fucking do it. How do you want to? Let's host 3 of the biggest events of the summer back to back to back. Let's go. Love it, and kiss like hats off to you guys.
Yeah, excellent.
You do well.
That's what it's about. So Champions League SuperFinals, you get women's VNL a week, like 9 days later, you get men's VNL right after that. Same gym, same spot, just make it practically the volleyball capital of the world for the month of May. Great. Love it. That's really good. To wrap up our Champions League discussion, we can talk about Malonza a little bit. I feel for them to a degree because this is a good team. They clearly have been injecting a lot of money into women's volleyball in the last 3 or 4 years, because this team, especially on the women's side, used to be an afterthought until really post-pandemic. They clearly have got a couple more big-time sponsors on board and have really created rosters that can contend and legitimately win some things. I feel for them because they happen to play in the same league as Conegliano, which is a team that's going to be almost impossible to beat. In 3 of the 4 competitions that Malonza played in, they lost in the final to Conegliano. And then the other one, they got 6-donged by Scandici in the Lega Volley Femminile playoffs, which I think is the most disappointing result of them all. I think the most memorable moment for them was beating Fenerbahce in that golden set. That was an all-time awesome achievement. But I think you got to take a look at what are we really doing here with this team. You go out in the offseason, you sign Paola Egonu, probably the biggest contract in all of women's volleyball, but you still have some of the same issues that you and I, Everett, have been pointing at for years. Marco Gaspari just can't really figure out what he's doing at certain positions. Some of the roster construction doesn't make sense. Some of the decision-making on playing time doesn't make sense. Some of the foreigner limit building for the Italian league is a little bit questionable. The outside hitter position is incredibly unstable and continues to be that way for this team. What's your take on the season from our favorite club that we tell to figure it out, being Malonza?
I mean, I think it's funny the fact that they put so much stock into this women's team when their men's team was statistically way better.
Well, yeah, that's true.
You know, like their men's team has how many trophies from this year? How many does Malonza have? Like, you know, a lot less. I think there's all of those things that we need to consider. And I also it just comes to some of the boomerism that we see in Italy in general. Like Italian volleyball is very old school. And it's not really going to change. Like it's kind of like the NHL where you just like, and the NBA where you just like recycle these old head coaches who have a history of not being great and yet are still continue to go on. But for me, like, yes, the head of this team is Gaspari, but at the same time, like, I'm going to bring it back to a comment that I've made over the past couple weeks, Rob, and that I think that decision between Agonu and Antropova at the Italian level isn't as necessarily clear cut as I think some people think it is. Now, once again, I think you start Agonu. She needs to be your number one. But once again, like this is a pattern of just not being able to really make it happen for Agonu-led teams over like since last year's Champions League final? No,
Which she put on an all-time great performance
which she
won
put on an
last year.
all-time great performance and won last year. But this past calendar year, since then, it hasn't really been great for her through the national team last summer and then throughout this season. Like her numbers in this one, Rob, aren't fantastic.
Oh, they're bad. They're bad. It was bad match. Very bad match.
Right? Bad match. And I just think that not only is it a bad match, but there's so many errors, right? She needs so much volume to be able to produce. And that's why I think that like that decision is a much more difficult decision than people think, right? Like I think when you start crunching the numbers, it's maybe a bit of a situation that like you could be doing a lot of good but a lot of bad at the same time. And that's what I kind of feel like you know, you specifically have been very critical of Namir for demanding the ball so much and have pointed out as that's potentially one of the downfalls of the Dutch men's team. I feel the same way for Agonu on this side, on the women's side.
I think that's a pretty fair comparison. They are similarly talented players that demand similar volume at the same position
and have the ability to take over a match and be the most dominant player in the gym or at a particular event.
The difference is that I think in the women's game, the way that Paula Egonu plays and demands volume, that is the way that you almost have to win in women's volleyball right now. Whereas the way that Namir does it, I don't think is necessarily the best game plan for winning matches on the men's side. I think there's a little bit of a difference there, but you're not wrong. I think a question that's interesting in the chat that I like is, would Milano have won this Champions League if the coaches were switched?
I think that's a tough one.
That is a tough one because I honestly I don't think other than the choice to start Nika Dalderop at outside, which I disagreed with from the get-go. I thought that Malonza lost this match because of Egonu, not because of anything Gaspari did.
Yeah, I think so as well. You know, like in a one match situation, like sure you started what's her face Dalderop over Hezot, which maybe wasn't the greatest decision, but like you changed that really quickly.
Yeah, midway through the first, that was a quick yank for sure.
You know, you had Brenda in there as well. Like Malawau came in off the bench to do some stuff.
She actually played great. She served great.
You know, we saw Karabayama, like they weren't afraid of substitutions. They changed things up. It's hard to say in terms of preparation. Like maybe they weren't as prepared. I think maybe that's the biggest difference. But at the end of the day, you need to be able to execute. And I mean, hey, like let's not beat around the bush and say that the last time Conegliano played a Champions League final with Agonu, they lost.
That is true. That was 2 years ago.
So
All right. So that's it. That's the club season. We have one more thing to do to sort of tie a bow on the club season, look back at every league, which I'm excited for. But before we do that, Everett, we got to let the people know because it's National Team Summer now. We're going to be at events. We
Ooh-wee.
want you head into thatvolleyballstore.com.
I love it. Absolutely. Head over to thatvolleyballstore.com. Use the code SPICY to get 15% off of your entire order. Get some sweet gear, some 9x9 gear, some spicy volleyball gear, and of course, the one and only Where's Daddy gear.
Daddy.
Daddy.
God, I love Daddy. He's just the best. So some people in the Discord were making some very slanderous claims today about Daddy, and I didn't like that. And I need to come on this show and defend Daddy Stankovic. And the way we like to defend him is by celebrating him, and we celebrate him by hiding him somewhere. Last week, we were congratulating the Berlin Recycling Volleys on winning the Bundesliga yet again. And you can see there, he is in the back row underneath the M in that champion banner on the Bundesliga side.
Oh, he's
There
a
is Daddy.
Dutzermeister.
Man, Daddy's been winning a lot of championships the last few weeks.
He's just racking them up.
A lot of teams doing a lot of celebrating. Love to see it. So, of course, we hide Daddy somewhere in every show. And if you find him, all you got to do is comment the timestamp of where you find Daddy, and you get a shout out the following week. Last week, Jackson Jr. found him first. Congratulations. And also Anthony Lee says, congratulations, Berlin, on another victory, but Daddy doesn't look as happy as the others. Is that because of some generation gap between him and Crick Talk? Maybe it is. Great question. So
I was about to be like, yo, imagine if Crick Talk and Daddy were on the same team, but they literally were last year in Modena. So oopsies.
What a time that was. So yeah, good job for you guys finding Daddy. Make sure you look for him for this show. Comment the timestamp of where he is in the main YouTube comment section after the live stream is over. Don't put it in the live chat. Wait until the stream is over and comment it down there. All right, Everett, I'm excited now to do something that we did at the midway point of the club season that we have once again relied upon the Volleyball Source community to help us select the all-star teams and hand out some end-of-season awards for all of the different club leagues. We've got 8 leagues represented, and I just put a link to this Google Sheet in the live chat for anybody that's watching that wants to be able to read this or scroll through it a little bit clearer. You should all have view access if you have that link, so go give that a look. We've got 8 leagues represented, and a huge thank you to everybody in the Volleyball Source Discord community who helped to contribute to some of these end-of-season lists. We got a lot of good ones. We've got regular season dream teams. We've got playoff dream teams, and then we've got some superlatives. Some of which are not so good. Some awards that you don't want, but some awards that you do want. So we can go through some of these quickly and just kind of pick out some highlights. We're certainly not going to go through all of them because it's just too much. Y'all can look at the spreadsheet on your own time.
The playoff. Okay, just for reference here. I was not a part of any of this because as I've been working quite a bit the past little bit. So this is one of the, I looked at this earlier today for the first time. The playoff dream team for this men's SuperLega is hilarious. It's all Milano and Monza, which I think is awesome. And once again, I had no part of that. What other ones you want to talk about here, Rob? Where do we want to start?
I think people can take their time and read through
we're not going through every single league and every single
what
league.
I do think we should do is at least mention the MVPs of each as decided upon by the people. So for the men's SuperLega, Micheletto for the regular season was a no-brainer MVP, but I liked the community's choice of Simone Gianelli for playoff MVP. Okay. All right. I did like that choice. Also, we named a least valuable player in every league,
Simone Anzani,
and also a worst signing. So those are 2 different categories. I think worst signing is kind of based on expectation, like being brought in to fill a certain role and not playing well enough. But then least valuable player, the way I defined it in the Discord, was a player who either was a starter or played significant minutes who just wasn't good. And I was looking at some of Anzani's stats. They were horrendous. He had just barely over 1 point per set, only hit about 360 efficiency, which for a middle is awful, and had like 0.3 blocks per set.
Yikes!
Like, it was bad.
Funny.
I didn't realize how bad his numbers were for Lube the whole year, but they were rough. And then worst signing in the SuperLega, unfortunately for me, was Gabby Garcia Fernandez. I looked at his numbers today; they were bad. His numbers were bad. Not great.
Honestly, I think like Padova might have been better signing Xander Kuczynski than Gabby Garcia Fernandez at this point. But yeah, you're not wrong. That was that is tough for Gabby Garcia Fernandez. Classic biggest stooge.
Andrea Anastasi, no brainer there.
Is that 2 for 2? Is that a second year in a row Anastasi's getting it in the men's Superliga? I think it is.
It might be.
I like the Gagini made the playoff dream team as well.
Yeah, he deserved it. He played great. Then the other one I want to point out is best match. These people, the people who watch every game in these leagues like more than we do, decided upon best match. This one for the SuperLega, I completely agree with. 100%. It was game 2 of Milano versus Perugia. That like 3-hour 5-set banger when Ferry Regers played the match of his life. That was one of the great club volleyball matches I've ever watched, and I'm glad we get to look back and remember how awesome that was.
All right, fair enough. What other things you want to talk about here? Big shout out to Joe Worsley being named a season MVP for actually a couple of American setters. Joe Worsley season MVP, and then Quinn Isaacson playoff MVP in the French league. Also got Maxime Halvois for the best breakout player for Toulouse, who used to play at Ohio State as well. He was also the best comeback player. The biggest stooge is the entirety of the LNV. So I'd love to hear why we voted that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Is that the playoff format?
It's playoff format. It's broadcasting. It's like quality of broadcasting because their broadcasts are hot garbage.
The fact that they call themselves the Marmara Spike League now.
Yeah, that's some stoogery as well. There's of course that dumb medical rule that enabled Luciano Polinsky to play for Tours in the playoffs. Like just a lot of stoogery, and this is voted on by our French people in the Discord. So yeah, they claim, and I kind of agree, that the entirety of the LNV wins the Stooge of the Year award in that league. That's pretty impressive.
Okay, fair enough. Like to see it.
Also, least valuable player. Did you know that Uros Kovacevic's older brother Nikola was still playing?
Uros is old.
Uros is 31. Nikola is 40. I had no idea he was still playing.
Why?
Well, clearly he wasn't very good because the Discord gave him the least valuable player award.
Okay, fair enough. Okay.
Right, want to hit the 2 Turkish leagues?
Yeah, let's head over to Turkey. Let's start with the Süttenlar Ligi because it is better than the Efele Ligi.
Indeed.
Pretty much as expected. Shoutouts to Sarah Willite Parsons for getting into the first team outside hitter. Like, there's so many quality outside hitters in the Süttenlar Ligi, and for her to get out there is pretty big, according to our fans. Once again, Ada Erdem getting on the playoff team blocking. Interesting, no Vargas on this list.
I'm not that surprised. She didn't play very much of the season. She came over halfway through. She was pretty good in the playoffs, but I'm a huge fan of giving the playoffs MVP to Ada Erdem. I love giving middles that level of credit, and she's an all-time legend, and she was absolutely brilliant in the playoffs. I think if Fenerbahce had her in that Malonza Champions League series,
exactly,
could have been talking about a very different match yesterday. Different match yesterday.
I 100% agree. I think the same thing as well too. Like maybe just she doesn't necessarily have the game in terms of plus minuses on the stat sheet, but she affects her team in other ways that we can't stat. So love to see that. But we also know how beloved she is, like by our Turkish community. Like she is having her jersey number retired, if that's a possible thing in volleyball, once her tenure is done with the Turkish national team. Even more so if they're able to cap everything off with an Olympic championship this year.
Yeah, what an achievement that would be for her. And then Stooge of the Year in the Süttenlar League, he went to 2 people. One was Zé Roberto for turning THY into a Brazilian satellite and then sucking all year. So this is according to the Discord. And then Vakif Bank's management gets the other Stooge of the Year award, apparently for not understanding the foreigner rules and for building a non-competitive team and never having a chance of really winning very much. Also, people wanted to give some sort of Stooge award to Stefano Lavarini, but I didn't put that one on here because he did win the league title, so I don't think he deserves any Stooge awards because he did win at the end of the day. So
he did. You're not wrong. Yeah, what happened at THY this year? And I mean, I love how the worst player signing is also Julia Bergman.
Yeah,
like,
yikes.
Things are happening for Brazilian volleyball in general that are not good at all. I mean, the only good thing for THY, it's kind of ironic because the only good thing for THY this year was Kiera Van Rijk, and she's actually gonna be heading to Vakif Bank to wear the black and gold next year. So, yeah. Woo, love to see it. Moving on to the men here, there is one consistent name that we're seeing up and down this list. Actually, a few on the men's side, actually. But Namir Abdelaziz, and then your boy wonder, your Clark Kent, Mr. Matt Anderson, having a massive season in Turkey.
Yeah, I think if Namir hadn't been so damn good within Turkish borders the entire season, Matt Anderson had a legit MVP case. And he was brilliant the whole year when he played. When we saw what happened to Ziraat Bank when Anderson didn't play, but Hawk Bank, of course, was the best team in the league. They swept everything there was, and Namir was the best player. It was cool to see Micah Ma'a get the nod for playoff dream team setter. I'm interested about this Murat Yenipazar guy, who's the setter for Fenerbahce. I've seen him a little bit. I've watched him a little bit. Not enough to really understand just how good of a setter he is, but the consensus among our Turkish fans is that it is time for him to take over the starting setter spot on the national team from Arslan Ekşi. That is what the Turkish people are saying, and I honestly would kind of like to see that.
You know what? If they do, they might have a chance of winning a set against Canada first game of VNL. So maybe that's what they should do. But yeah, in all seriousness, this Yenipazar, just like Fenerbahce had no reason to be that good down the stretch.
Except randomly, like Dick Coy had an amazingly good season out of nowhere.
But that's to me, that's exactly it. Like if you have a mediocre player having a randomly good run, I immediately look to the setter.
Agreed.
Right? Like it's the same thing with Micheletto. Just like mediocre, and you have to give it all the credit to the setter. That one took a lot to say with a straight face after I was just lamented on and prosed about his ability to do absolutely anything. Also, big shout out to Micah Maha. He's signed to go back to Hawk Bank. So year number 3 over there in Ankara.
I like that. Yeah, it's 3. And then Ankara. And then comeback player of the year. Shout out to Efe Mandaraja. He deserves a lot of credit. It is great to see him healthy again. I do still fear that his many parts of his body are made of glass, but if he is healthy, I think finally the world at large is gonna get to see him on the Turkish national team this summer, play Nations League, and just realize how good this kid is. He's amazing. So I'm excited for that. And
Turkey joining the VNL ranks, I think, is like between like Efe Mandaracha and Lagumzia, Yenipazar. You don't even have to talk about the other Lagumzia too.
Mirza had a great year.
Yeah, I think they're gonna be good. They're gonna lose to Canada, but I think they're gonna be good.
They're gonna lose to a lot of people, but they're gonna figure it out quickly because it's clearly a good volleyball country. All right,
they might be better than Netherlands, especially since the Dutch forgot to put Benny Twinstra.
Yeah, what about that? A clerical error leaves Benny Twinstra off the roster. We'll laugh about that in our VNL preview whenever we get to do one the next few weeks.
We should talk about that. We should figure that out. I know a lot of people really liked our breakdown last year, so I think we should do something similar to that.
I completely agree. All right, last 4 leagues. Lega Volley Femminile. The thing that I really liked here is that nobody could decide upon a playoff dream team. So what we decided upon, me, Tommy, Legidro, and whoever else, we decided that it was just going to be Conegliano's entire roster. So Conegliano's entire starting 7, they are the playoff dream team for Lega Volley Femminile. But and Tommy made a point today, is like, okay, who is the best player not on Conegliano? The answer was probably Ekaterina Antropova. But was she better than Hawk? No. Hawk dropped 41 in a game in the finals. Like, there's no way you could give it to anybody else. So Yeah, I thought that was
the only
funny.
thing that I could maybe think of put in Zhu Ting over over Kelsey Robinson Cook.
Yeah,
That
maybe.
might be one of the only ones that I might be okay with.
I just thought it was really funny to put an entire playoff roster from one team. That was my decision at the end of the day, and I did it out of comedy. So I hope that landed.
But it's also like you're
also pretty much true.
Yeah, I mean, Marina Lubian would be the only other one. Yeah, Lubian and Kelsey Robinson Cook would maybe be the only two that I would potentially put someone else in there. But yeah, that would be it.
Also, in accordance with the conversation we were having earlier, Coach of the Year, Daniele Santarelli, biggest stooge, Marco Gaspari of Malonza. So
yep, okay.
Take that for what it's worth. This regular season MVP, though, Vida Akimova of Novara. Good for her. She had a great year.
Really? Didn't she play like most of the regular season not for Novara?
No, she was. You're thinking of Markova. No, Markova is the girl who was in Turkey.
Oh yeah, no.
What's the other Russian girl?
No. Akimova was there the entire time. Markova came later. Yes, you're right. Sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, that's
what I'm talking about sometimes. Yeah, Avery Skinner being the best newcomer. Love to see that.
That's nice.
Being the best coach. Fucking obvious. Carlota Cambi, the setter for Pirolo, best comeback player. Who's that girl for Busto? The one I really like.
Oh, Brocchi, Martina Brocchi.
Yeah.
She was mentioned in a handful of things. I think like some of the people are sort of league committees, if you will. Some of them put like a best U21 player category, and I didn't include that on here, but Martina Brocchi was the pick in that category for the Lega Volley Femminile. So I hope to see her in an Italian jersey maybe this summer. I don't know if she's on the prelim roster or not. Bundesliga wise, I didn't think there was anything super interesting. Your boy Jory Mantha was a playoff.
Let's go, Jory! Love to see that.
Yeah, Eric Ruhr's named MVP of the season for Lundberg. I agree with that. I thought he was awesome. Also named most improved player. That says a lot. But then Nehemiah Motza, the middle for Berlin, was given playoff MVP. And I remember looking at his stats in that 5-setter match 4 of the final, and he was ridiculous. I think he put up like 19 points out of the middle, which is sick.
Jose Masso getting best newcomer makes sense too.
Yeah.
Ronnie's been saying some shit that Masso might start ahead of what's his face, the one that
Romeo Alonso. Alonso. I heard the same thing from Ronnie in the Discord, and I would be stunned by that. But I have seen the freakish athleticism of Jose Masso, and he's still relatively new to the middle blocker position. I know he was an opposite like coming up, so he's going to be a pretty darn scary prospect to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Another one that's funny to me is Jan Fornal being the worst player signing for Friedrichshafen and losing his spot to a first-year Jackson Young out of Nipissing University in North Bay, Ontario, in Friedrichshafen. I mean, obviously, I had to get that in there because big shout-out to Jackson Young. But at the same time, like, come on. Jan Fornal, like talking about mediocre brothers. We just talked about what's his face, Kovacevic. Now we're talking about his brothers in the Champions League final playing great. One of the best players in the world right now, and he's just a plug.
I think in like tiers of brothers, there's the Legumsha brothers on top. Then there's Swan Ingapet on the bottom. And I think Jan Fornal is a little bit better than Swan Ingapet, but not much.
Yeah, but the gap maybe isn't as big because Tomasz Fornal isn't as good as Ingapeth, but Jan Fornal is maybe slightly better than Swan. But then again, like
Swan,
I mean, like has at least played like Italian league for like Italian league teams. I mean, Jan Fornal is out here getting benched in Friedrichshafen as they quickly get worse and worse.
Indeed. All right, let's hit Poland. No surprise about a lot of these PlusLiga names. The playoff dream team represented exclusively by JW and Zawiercie. Shout out to Bartosz Kfolek, who was great in the playoffs. Norbert Huber was the unquestioned MVP of the season, and it's impossible to argue that. Just those blocking numbers were all-time incredible, an all-time incredible blocking season. A good amount of Yeah, a good amount of Luke Lublin represented in sort of the like happy surprise sort of categories. They won Coach of the
Lublin,
Year.
Lublin is going to be an interesting team to watch. Like they're getting like Leon next year.
Which is
They've been
insane.
making some good moves. I think they're playing Challenge Cup next year because they won
Yes, they are.
that fifth place thing. So like Lublin has been coming onto the scene recently. So I love to see that Hoss and Botti are getting on that list.
Edvin Skruters, that terrible Latvian backup setter for JW, was worst signing of the year, which I loved. I thought that was a fantastic choice. And then Rafał Buszek was least valuable player, which I also loved. I've always hated him. I never understood how he got a single second on the Polish national team. He is an outside hitter that literally cannot score. He hit 160 efficiency on the season.
Efficiency.
160 efficiency on the season, and Sharni Rodham got relegated. Bad.
And they were playing Buszek over Brody Hofer.
Bad. Very bad. Shame on you, Buszek. I hear he's going to go be the backup libero for Skra next year. Good.
No.
Right on the bench where you belong. My goodness. And then match of the year in that one, you could have picked either of the JW versus Resovia matches in the semifinal. I think our people picked match 2, but both those matches were insane.
Nice. Cool. All right. Moving on. Or what? Sorry. Anything else you wanted to talk about there on the PlusLiga?
Just last but not least is the Tauron Liga in Poland, which I am proud to say I watched exactly 0 matches the entire season.
I'm not proud to say that. I was just thinking that I think that one of my goals for next year is to try to watch more Tauron Liga.
Well, I just wish that the league was like, I wish they had more foreign talent because they just don't. They have very, very, very little foreign talent. It's like most of the good Polish players play there. The very best Polish players play elsewhere.
Yeah.
And it's just difficult for me to get interested in it. Now, our girl Lethal Barbie was named season MVP. Who we love.
Lethal Barbie.
I'm very excited to watch Lethal Barbie on the Polish national team this summer.
But so much more relevant when it comes to the international team season.
Other than that, like I don't really want to speak that much about the Tauron Liga because I would be speaking completely out of place. I don't know anything about this. So there were some good discussions with our Polish people in the Discord that came up with this list. Read through it, get in the Poland chat if you want to know more about the Tauron Liga. I'm happy that we have them represented here on our end of season awards. I just personally don't know enough to really give any takes on this.
I'm gonna also say that, and maybe we need to find where's the Tauron Liga streamed.
No idea.
Is it on Polstat Sport? I don't think it's on Polstat Sport. So I was looking into getting an illegal Fire Stick, Rob, that like links you into all of the like cable channels from around the world.
I like that.
I want to see if I can get like Polstat Sport and just like stream everything to my TV.
That would be sick.
I would like to be able to do that, and it would have Rai on there too, and maybe some other ones. Like I know it has Japanese channels, so maybe I could see if I could find some of the new V League stuff. Like I'm looking into it. It's like $10 a month. It's not that bad.
Okay, interesting. All right. I put the link to this in the chat. I'll make sure it's in the YouTube description as well after this. Go ahead and look through it. Thank you again to the members of the Volleyball Source Discord that helped us put this together. It was cool to engage the community on this. And if you want to be a part of the community, join the Discord. The link's in the description. And really, the people that are just knowledgeable and active in the Discord that just talk about the volleyball going on in different countries, we just ask them to do this for us. And we have cool people that watch volleyball and know what they're looking at that make these lists. And if you want to be one of those people, join the community and get active. We appreciate you all.
We've got 1,900 members now in our Discord. Like Rob said, it's just a great place to talk shit about volleyball, amongst people who know volleyball. And if you want to learn, it's a good place. We got plenty of lurkers. We got plenty of people from all around the world who help us out. Like today, Rob, I had a special thing. So big shout out to Graham Viagrass for getting named the head coach of the Calgary Dinos, which, we're going to flip to the North America real quick here. But before the announcement was made, literally, like I got 3 Discord messages from members within 2 minutes of being like, Graham Viagrass is going to be the next head coach. Like it's about to be announced. Like that, like to me, it was just kind of like oh shit, I love the fucking Discord.
We've got people like breaking news. Like, we've got people with scoops.
Breaking news. I mean, it's funny because one of the first people to tell me that like Graham Vigrass was going to Calgary was also the person who told me that Graham Vigrass already turned down Calgary. So I mean, when you play the rumor game, sometimes you get burnt a little bit. But I just thought it was a pretty special moment when I had all these people coming to tell me, and I was like, shit, let's go. But on
Thank
that
you,
note,
Discord.
big shout out to Big Smooth. You know, there has been many conversations about why don't the best players stay in Calgary, and in Calgary is arguably like I would almost be willing to put Calgary up with like one of like I think Calgary might be one of the best volleyball cities in North America, hands
It
down.
probably is.
When you look at like the Elsters who came from there, like Brett Walsh came from there, like that's all I can think of right now. But I know there's so many more. Like it is up there. So
It definitely can't be. It can't be up there with Southern California, but
that's not one city. You know, like you'd have to do a breakdown of population. But I don't know. Let's figure it out. But yeah, big shout out to Graham Vigrass, who might go and potentially keep some Calgary kids in Calgary and revitalize what was once a great program. But Rob, if we're going to be talking about North American university college volleyball, fuck you sports right now, which is not something that you're going to hear me ever say. So you're welcome. But if anyone clips that out, fuck you. We had the wonderful pleasure of listening to you commentate the quarterfinals and semifinals. And then if you're not going to be doing it, there's not many people that I'd rather doing it than Mr. Kevin Barnett. And why am I blanking on his first name?
Paul Sunderland.
Paul Sunderland. I was going to call him Joe Sunderland. And that's an old Penn State player, so that would have been a bad mistake. But UCLA continues the trend of two-time winning national title champions. They get their second in a row in a big 3-1 win over Long Beach in the finals at Long Beach. Rob, it went pretty much as you expected, as you called it. You also called the player of the year in Heno. Where do you want to start with this one? How do I guide you through this to be able for you to give us the best information on this one? Do we start with the final and break that down and then go backwards, or do we want to like go over a little bit from the quarterfinals and all the way through?
I think we should do chronologically, because we can start with the fact that I was there all week. It was a very busy week. I did this show on last Monday from the hotel room, then called all 4 games on Tuesday, and it was 12 sets up, 12 sets down. All 4 3-0s. So complete shock.
Tuesday was it?
Tuesday.
Tuesday was a boring day of all.
Boring.
I'm sorry.
It was boring.
I was set up to watch you all day long. And then hey, Fort Valley pushing up against UCLA was one of the most entertaining things that happened all day.
Yeah, Penn State did not have a good match against UC Irvine. Belmont Abbey never had a chance against Long Beach, and I was expecting a little bit more out of Ohio State versus Grand Canyon, but they got smothered. Grand Canyon is very good, and I already did. I did a video on Wednesday here about breaking down those 4 games and previewing the semifinals. So if you want to watch that, go watch that. But I did not get to do a video after the semis because I was traveling back on Friday. And by the time I was able to record it, it was already Saturday morning and the final was coming up in like a couple hours. So I just skipped it and let everyone watch the final. Those 2 semifinals on Thursday night were the 2 greatest semifinals back-to-back in NCAA tournament history. That was one of the best days, period, in the history of NCAA men's volleyball. Those 2 games, UCLA beating UC Irvine in 5 and Long Beach State beating Grand Canyon in 5 in a reverse sweep. Those were 2 of the greatest matches I've ever seen at that level. It was so electric. It was so fun. They were both so competitive. The first match, UCLA versus Irvine, was outstanding. I really felt bad for Irvine because one of their starting outside hitter, Akil Tangatur, got hurt. What looked like a serious knee injury, like 10 points into the first set. And they brought this random Canadian kid off the bench who I'd literally never heard of, who had barely played the entire season. And
who's
this kid named Andon Kiriakou. I don't even know where he's from.
Oh, I know Kiriakou. Yeah. I'm pretty sure he's an Ontario guy. Let me look this up.
Yeah, I was like, when Tangatur got hurt, that was the last option that I thought David Niffen was going to go to. But to their credit, like, Irvine won that set when Tangatur got hurt, and then they made some changes going into the fourth, and they were down 2-1. They moved this kid Flexen, who started at opposite form. They moved him to the left side, and they brought in this big 6'10" Australian kid, William Darcy, on the right side. And I loved that move. I wanted to see it earlier. And then they were doing some really cool stuff. They were switch blocking. Like they put Darcy, this big opposite. They put him in the middle on Merrick McHenry and just had him commit on him. Just like full jump, because he was the only guy who could reach as high as McHenry did, and he actually blocked him once. Then they had their middle, this kid Grigoriev, who was shorter, go out and block the right side, and he got a couple one-on-ones against like Champlin and Robinson. It was sick. Like the back and forth and the chess matches and like what UC Irvine had to deal with losing a starter was really impressive. And then watching Ilir Heno, the player of the year, in person was remarkable. But at the end of the day, UCLA was so good and so balanced and so well-rounded. And some of the highlights that came out of this game, the semifinal game, I'm not even talking about
they were gross.
They were
gross. AVB Network was out there doing work.
They were gross. The angles that Merrick McHenry was hitting were insane. There was one ball that he bounced. So this Kiriakou kid, the Canadian kid, was 3 feet off the net in off blocker defense, and Merrick McHenry bounced a ball right between his feet. Like that ball was to the 5-foot line. Like it was nuts, the angles that Merrick McHenry was generating, and the highlights from both teams, and just the competitiveness and the energy. Awesome. And then that was followed up after that by Long Beach State at home reverse sweeping a very good and very feisty Grand Canyon team, when in the middle of the third set, down 2-0, Long Beach started being very intentional about getting the crowd involved. They made one key substitution to bring in Nathan Harlan, and then it got real chippy. Grand Canyon got a card. It got a little spicy. The Long Beach crowd really got some juice into it, and they brought it back with a reverse sweep against a Grand Canyon team, dude, that was so good. That match was awesome. Just the electricity in that pyramid. I will never forget what it felt like to be there for that game. It was so much fun.
If that game is played on a neutral site, does GCU win?
Without question. Without
question.
Win
in 3?
Very possibly.
And now here's my next question, and I'm jumping a little ahead of your timeline here, but to me, like I watched none of the semifinal. I was working.
Go back and watch them. They're all fully uploaded to the NCAA Championships YouTube channel for free.
Sick. But so my next question is, like, to me, GCU just beat UCLA. How different is that final? I know we haven't talked about it yet, but like GCU, if it was a GCU UCLA final, do we have a different outcome potentially?
Maybe. I mean, UCLA beat GCU twice in the regular season, then GCU beat him in the MPSF tournament. So it would have been nuts either way. It would have been a great match either way. But Long Beach was the better team in that semifinal. Like that comeback that they made was really impressive. They're really balanced. Their block defense to transition system was really impressive. It's really well like detail oriented. The problem was when Long Beach got to the final, that just wasn't really happening for them. UCLA was way more talented. They were way more skilled. Andrew Rowan is a transformationally better setter than Aiden Knipe. I think that really is what it came down to for me. They both teams had pretty good weapons on the wings. Nobody was quite as good as Ethan Champlin, who I have sung his praises all season, and he was named the most outstanding player of the tournament. So I loved to see that. He was amazing. But Andrew Rowan's setting for UCLA was so much better than Aiden Knipe that to me was the difference.
There was a few clips from the UCI match that it looked like Andrew Owen had the UCI blockers on skates.
Totally.
You know, and he was just getting one-on-ones and sorry, excuse me. He's just getting one-on-ones kind of everywhere. So
and serving too. He was Rowan was a difference maker from the service line in both the semi and the final. And,
to me, like Andrew Rowan has to be kind of the next guy up.
He is. I think that is pretty clearly the plan. So Rowan has said that this summer he's taking the summer off from anything USA, which I agree with, because there's no chance.
Love that.
Great plan. No chance he's going to Paris. So take the summer off. I would not be at all surprised if he was the backup setter in LA in 2028. I would not be surprised.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that he is the perfect player. He's got size, he's got a serve, he's got tremendous setting ability, he's got the brain, and he's exactly the right age right now. He's 20, and Micah Christensen is 31, so like it's maybe even 32. It's perfect. That overlap is perfect. So yeah, Rowan is the man. UCLA was the much better team in the final. The final was pretty good, especially when Long Beach got into the game a little bit and took the third set. It got a little bit interesting, but the semis were really the great matches, and the semis were the matches that to me will define the 2024 NCAA men's season, because those games were just so awesome. They really were.
All right, fair enough. And so, Rob, how many years in a row now have we had back-to-back
12
NCAA men's champions?
6 teams in a row have gone back-to-back. The last team to win an NCAA title without going back-to-back was Ohio State in 2011. I was in high school when that was happening.
Oh, man, I remember that. That was the crazy one where, Jeff Menzel and UCSB coming from the
exactly right.
seed, upset a whole bunch of people, and then USC in the finals. And then they did the exact same thing, upset USC again in the semifinals, and then lost to Ohio State in the finals that year. That was
excellent. Excellent memory.
Well,
you nailed that.
That was a transformational run for me, because that's when I had just picked up the Net Live. So I was so in tune with it because A, I had just picked up the Net Live, and B, that was the spring I started working for Volleyball Canada. So I had just watched all of this happen and had been listening to it through the Net Live. And then like the championship was in May, and a month later was my first Pan Am Cup. And Jeff Menzel was on that team. Dustin Watton was on that team. Kavika Shoji. Who was the really good guy who played for Murphy Troy was on that team. So it was all of these players that I had been listening about and watching throughout the NCAA. And just, that was the first time that I had like hyper focused on the NCAA. And then I was able to meet them all just a little bit later with the men's national team in my first foray of like working in international volleyball. So yeah, it was the most impactful NCAA tournament in my life. So that's really why I remember it so well.
That's a great. Mine was the year before. It was Stanford in 2010. It was like
with the Shojis,
both Shojis and Brad Lawson going off in the final. Like that team was really impactful for me. And then that Ohio State team, I know now the one from 2011. I know some of the guys and gave a couple of them a shout out on Tuesday as Ohio State was playing. But yeah, this pattern is insane. Irvine won in 2012 and 13. Then Loyola Chicago in 14 and 15.
One is interesting too because it's with two different coaches.
One was Speraw, then Speraw left, and Niffen won immediately in his first year. So yeah, then Loyola won 2, then Ohio State won 2 with Nick Schergen, then Long Beach State won 2 with Tuaninga, Ensing, and DeFalco. Yeah. Then year off for pandemic, then Hawaii won 2, and now UCLA has won 2. It really is a crazy pattern. So I guess whoever wins next year in 2025. If you can get good odds on them at your favorite sports book or whatever, bet some crazy amount on that same team to win in 2026, because this pattern is getting a little crazy.
Wild. Now, Rob, you asked me the question earlier. Wait, is there anything else you want to talk about here about the finals?
Nope.
About anything? All right. You asked me the question. What did you think of it all in terms of the production and of stuff like that for the CEV Champions League? I'm going to turn this around on you. What did you think about the level of production, of coverage, of attention, of just everything for the NCAA championships? Even more so the fact that you were there.
It's not good enough. It's not good enough. I'm not sure that it ever will be good enough. I'm not sure that anybody who is capable of fixing some of the issues even knows or cares. Probably not. But first and foremost, like the fact that those 2 semifinals weren't seen by more people is a crime. Those 2 semifinals needed to be on TV. Those 2 semifinals needed to be seen by every volleyball person in America. Like every kid, male or female, playing volleyball should have watched those 2 games on Thursday, and I guarantee you almost none of them did. And that is really disappointing. I was there. I was calling the games, but I know for a fact that the quality of the broadcast on NCAA.com that I was part of was not good enough. That broadcast was not good enough. There were way too many issues on the NCAA.com side in how that transmission came across. Way too many audio problems. Way too not nearly good enough video quality. Not good enough in the broadcasting area at all until it got to ESPN on Sunday. These matches need to be seen by way more people. And these stories of these players need to be told to way more people. And I did what I could from on site, but and then even like being in the press conferences, there were like maybe 5 people in each press conference at the NCAA tournament. It just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. There weren't enough people there. There weren't enough people posting about it, talking about it, covering it, promoting it. And I'm mostly gearing this at the NCAA themselves. You, the NCAA, are failing this sport. They always have failed this sport. They always will fail this sport. The most embarrassing thing that they did is years ago, there used to be just one social media platform for NCAA volleyball. It is at NCAA volleyball on all the platforms. A couple of years ago, they decided that Instagram and Twitter account was going to cover the women's game only. So now NCAA volleyball, the social media handle, covers women's indoor and women's beach. So they were posting more about the beach national championship, which is the same weekend as the men's indoor, which makes no sense. That just cannot happen anymore. So a couple years ago, there literally was not an official NCAA social media account for NCAA men's volleyball. Then they made one totally half-assed, posted almost nothing, and went fully dormant for 11 months. Then this year, they didn't even post anything. They didn't reactivate the account. Somebody just forgot the password, forgot it existed, whatever, until the day before the final. They didn't post about the bracket being selected. They didn't post about the quarters. They didn't post about the semis. They're like, oh, whoops. We forgot. We have this Instagram account. We're going to activate it the day before the NCAA title game and post that people should watch it on ESPN. And they got clowned on social media, and as they should have. That was embarrassing. Embarrassing work by the NCAA. And I remind everybody, at the NCAA level, volleyball in America, at the NCAA level, if the genders were swapped, there would be riots in the streets about the inequity about opportunities for men's volleyball. If the genders were swapped and it was the women getting fractions of the opportunities for the men to play volleyball at the NCAA level, there would be riots in the streets about the inequity. But because it's men's volleyball that is laughably underserved, the numbers are astonishing about how underserved men's volleyball is compared to women's volleyball. Yeah, nobody cares.
But
nobody cares because
like, yeah, but like no, like that's the way it has been for a long time. It's why men's volleyball is the least served sport in the NCAA, because the least amount of institutions carry it, because less than 50% of the states in the United States carry men's volleyball at the high school level, right? Like, most states in America, you can't win. And I know there's a massive things happening. Like, got a give a massive shout out to First Point. Like they continuously keep most. I saw that Indiana recently
finally
brought on
boys volleyball Indiana
at the high school level, which is massive. But like the quality issues that we see in men's volleyball, like it's not even, let's not call it a quality issues. Let's call it opportunity issues.
An opportunity issue.
It's opportunity issues. But I do feel like when you look at the numbers, that there is unfortunately an appropriate number of, right? Like, it's not like there's a massive amount of like youth volleyball, like boys youth volleyball in the States, that they're missing out on that next level. But I fully agree.
Is so that
but I mean, like, when you
for another time, but
yeah, definitely a discussion for the other time. But at the end of the day, like, when's the last time an American-born player won the Player of the Year, right? So it's not like there's like quality American players that getting missed out. Like, teams like, as more and more teams come in, yes, it's going to create more opportunities, and it's massive. But ultimately, I agree. Like, the fact that the Instagram account is not posting is just
so embarrassing.
And like, with other sports, it would make it, like basketball, you need to have separate, right? because their tournaments are at the same time. Their leagues are at the same time. With volleyball, you could have it just continuously goes. Like you go literally from the NCAA women's finals, Christmas time, boom, you go into men's season.
Also, like if you look at what has happened in the men's game in the last 10 years since the creation of NCAA women's beach volleyball, that is another huge.
It's the fastest growing sport in NCAA history.
It's another huge criticism that I have because of the coverage and because of the increase in opportunities and because of the massive big name institutions that have created NCAA women's beach teams, and none of that is happening on the men's side for so many.
But none of the money is on the men's side.
It costs relatively nothing to add an NCAA men's indoor team. It costs so much more to add a women's beach volleyball team. The facilities that demands, it's a completely different story. Men's volleyball would be the cheapest sport for any school in the country to add. I mean, you have all the facilities.
Yeah, but then you have to compete for facilities. I mean, like, yeah, at the end of the day, there is an exponential amount more of women playing volleyball in the United States than men, right? Proportionally, you can say that the representation at the NCAA is adequate.
No, it's not, and I will never ever say that it is. Never, it's not adequate, and
not adequate in terms of like how they cover the sport, definitely. But when you look at the number of players on the men's side compared to the number of opportunities, compared to the number of women on the players on the women's side and the number of opportunities, that is adequate.
I don't agree. I don't agree with that at all. And
all right,
we can break down the numbers another time. But yeah, that's my recap on men's NCAAs. I was really happy to be there. I was really happy to be a part of a great event that I've always loved, and to try and do justice to those matches on Thursday, which were all time great. But there's still so much work that needs to be done for that game.
I was doing color.
It was great. I prefer doing play-by-play, but I like doing color. It allows me to focus on like some more technical things and some more high-level things, and just notice different things. And it was cool for me. I enjoyed it.
Question for you, because like Steven just posted in the chat. He's like, I explained to my friends this weekend that there's no Big Ten in men's volleyball. Where does that onus lie? The fact
Title IX. That's the end of story.
I fully agree with you on that one.
So yeah, that's a show. This is longer than I thought it was going to be. I got to get out.
Someone said it was like, this is supposed to be a shorter show, and here we are, classic hour and a half.
Yeah, right. All right, I got to get out of here, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all enjoyed all of our coverage of the club season. Everett, I am so excited. It is national team season. We will sync up and figure out what all of our plans are for all this content. Women's VNL starts a week from tomorrow, which is crazy.
Yep. Antalya and Brasilia, which means we're going to get to watch volleyball throughout the day.
Yes, we are.
Morning, afternoon, and evening if you're here in North America with us.
Love it. So get excited for that. Join the Discord. Follow us. Subscribe here on YouTube if you're not. I don't know why you wouldn't be at this point. But yeah, it's going to be a big summer. I'm excited for it. Everett's excited for it. We're excited to have you along. Thanks for watching.
Peace. Oh, we're confirmed for VNL. Airbnb has been booked.
Fantastic.
Let's go, ladies.